the community people. What's the history of that protest?
In June last year, in June last year, I went on a familiarization visit there since my appointment. I addressed both management and staff. The staff shared with me some concerns they had. On my return to Freetown, they fielded a delegation who did a deep dive into their challenges, right, including non-regard for their trade union rights, including what they refer to as historical injustice. It had to do with their salary situation. They spoke about health and safety issues. They spoke about pipe-borne water. They spoke about a myriad of other things, right? So we started engagements. We had engaged them beyond 10 times. We have agreed several roadmaps for a peaceful and amicable resolution. All of those have not been respected. Instead, right, the trade union leaders in the organization have been hounded. Some of them have been sacked. Some of them have been suspended in spite of clear state action directives from the ministry. In spite of the intervention of the Office of National Security, they still went ahead and did all of the things they did, right? So I think it got to a point where the staff also felt they needed to withhold their services, and then came Madam First Lady to solidarize with them, to support them.
No doubt the First Lady is an indigene of the community.
Yep.
From snippets of what I saw from some of the things she said yesterday during the protest were her office receiving a letter from the institution highlighting several other things, but one thing she highlighted was that in copy was the chief minister, and part of her submission, the insinuation was that these people are being sort of fanned or enabled to disregard her and the community people, fund or fueled or supported by the chief minister. What are the dynamics at play here? It may send a message that there is a political divide, an SLPP versus SLPP situation at play in this situation.
I don't know about that. The First Lady probably has more information than is accessible to me. So you might need to ask her that, or her competent spokesperson. I don't know about that. The thing I want to restrict myself to is that, were it not for the fact that the issues will eventually end up on my table, it probably would have been a great idea to also join the peaceful protest to support the staff, because I have engaged with this matter close to a year. From June last year.
So that's exactly,
we have made
since June last year to now,
have made several,
and you've said they have not bothered to comply.
Yep.
What would make an institution not owned by Sierra Leonean indigenes, operating in Sierra Leone, flout whatever the Ministry of Employment, a government institution, has put on the table as the roadmap for the solution going forward? What would make a foreign-based company working in a country disregard instructions from a government ministry?
Well, so this country has sadly enough suffered long years of impunity, very long years of impunity. So there is a culture of impunity already. That is why many see it as strange that will have risen up to challenge impunity, right? One of the most renowned scholars in the area of management, leadership, and culture, Peter Drucker, did say at one point in one of his books that culture eats strategy for breakfast. As now, the culture of impunity has pervaded this country, literally. So when a new person comes to leadership, you want to change that behavior, just be ready for the several battles. This is one manifestation.
But doesn't the ministry have other powers,
well,
other lines of action to follow up on in a situation like this, where you have given directives to the company on what to do to address the situation, and they haven't done it?
Yeah, so
what are the other lines of action?
The ministry, like the army, does not just use all of the weapons you have at your disposal. Some are last resort. Some we keep for last resort. For example, if you are found flagrantly violating labor rights, the labor laws, we could withdraw our work permit. But that cannot be in the first instance. That is a very last resort when everything else fails, right? So we are not there yet. I hope this peaceful protest
we're not there yet
leads
since
to a
June
resolution.
last year. You've been on this matter and you say we're not there yet.
I have not been the only person.
We're not there to a point where the First Lady herself, not aside from the fact that she's an indigent from the community, she's the First Lady of the Republic.
Yeah, which makes it even more interesting.
Where she had to now go and join her people to do a protest, and you say we're not there yet to institute other actions?
Let me say this to you. You know, this has been a long, drawn-out journey. This matter has had the attention of many people. Even the Honorable Vice President engaged with this matter. He traveled. During that period, Madam First Lady showed interest as an indigene of Kono, and I want to commend her effort. Governments alone do not do all of the things that ought to be done.
Is the government so powerless that a foreign company can have a right, have their say, that is contrary to the government's say in matters like this?
Could we kindly, okay, hear this. Number one, governments are known, governments all over the world are known to work with activists, with civil society groups to achieve set objectives. When, for example, we wanted to repeal the criminal libel law, we did not rely on government functionaries alone to do it. We worked with our activists in civil society. We built a coalition of the willing, activists and civil society organizations. That was what saw the back of the criminal libel law. Secondly, when we did the cybersecurity and crime bill, I was literally a very perpetual guest here. We were challenged. We also had to go out to civil society, to activists. That was how we built a coalition. So working with activists as government is never a new thing. You did not expect to see media because these matters will eventually come to my table for adjudication and resolution. But I support what happened, and I am not ashamed to say I worked with them to get it to where it was yesterday.
The First Lady ended up calling the people dogs, within government to, prioritize kickbacks over the welfare of these people. Who or what would you blame, Mr. Minister, for this flagrant violation of these human rights, or impunity, if you like to call it that?
I don't want to respond to any comments made by the First Lady. I like the principle of her solidarity with the downtrodden workers, because this is what governments are about. This is what we stand for. Those employees know the efforts I have made, including, developing a roadmap for a peaceful and amicable resolution of this problem, right? I mean, it is just that Koidu has been known pos. They have been very obstinate. They have been very uncooperative. Whatever the reasons, I don't know. Well, I can guess some. I mean, in public, they have told us, and this is fact, the diamond prices on the global markets have plummeted to an all-time low. But still, I think we could have had more meaningful engagements, a respectful engagement, right? A mutually reinforcing and trusting engagement. But there's a broken trust between the leadership at Koidu and their employees. So that is why we are where we are today.
What's the best way out of this?
Well, so
things stand.
We have shared a resolution pathway with them since last week, right? The real issue is that in 2016, this issue is as old as 2016, right? They transitioned their salaries from dollar denomination to Sierra Leone's, right? And they pegged it at 6.50 to a dollar. That is why they are still being paid. So all the people are saying, let us address this historical injustice, right? So we have said, okay, we understand the current climate in the diamond sector. Please raise this salary by 30%. Give these people a bag of rice, right? Improve health and safety. Give them an opportunity to bank with whoever they want to bank with, right? And sundry other things. That is the resolution roadmap we had shared with them since last week. I hope this peaceful protest puts pressure on them to return to the table and to adhere to that resolution pathway.
So, Minister, away from that, the last time you were here, we were talking about, increment in minimum wages. Yeah. Currently it's stuck at 800, which has the same price as a big bag of rice is sold 800 across the board. Yeah. People are finding it, well, if not all, but many are finding it difficult to eat properly these days, and we're in the first months now. Have you made any significant progresses since last time we discussed this about these minimum wages?
I know the minimum wage is insulting. It's very low and cannot do beyond buying you a bag of rice. I mean, we really need to improve it. There is a prescribed way of increasing the minimum wage. I have been in conversation with the Sierra Leone Labour Congress, with the Employers Federation. They have made prescriptions to us, depending, taking into consideration the food basket situation. But there is also, you know, the compelling issue of ability to pay. You know, so we are striding that delicate balance right now, and a decision will be taken in due course. We clearly understand there is need to review the minimum wage upwards, but there is also, in all negotiations, and even in the law, the ability to pay provision. We are also talking to employers. We want to see how we can reach a middle ground. Okay, so that we're able to alleviate, you know, the living conditions of the very poor who are hard hit by the current economic challenges.
So people are willing to employ but cannot pay for services rendered.
Well, so that's the problem. So we have to strike a delicate balance between those two. It's not just that you increase salaries. Some will tell you, yeah, okay, we are fine, but if we increase salaries, we have to let some people go. So that's the balance we have to manage, right? It's very easy for me to say, look, I've had a representation from, you know, from the social partners, and this is the agreement. I go on radio and announce it. Yeah? But we have to weigh the implications of each and every one of our actions. I don't home because we have increased minimum wage and they have been laid off. And I know even in the current circumstance, I've had to address on a daily basis the amount of people who are threatened with redundancies. We have had to talk to some employers. Please keep it on. I mean, this too shall pass. This current challenge is transient, and we will return to better days.
Now, the president has done so much, invested in TVET, for instance, also sports development, despite the strings of setbacks we've been, you know, facing with Leone Stars, of course, to actually defend his cash. But another thing the, you know, president spoke lengthily about in his 2018 manifesto is reducing the cost of, you know, doing business by, you know, modernizing regulations, you know. But just yesterday, you know, duties and taxes were increased by more than 100%. I'm sure you saw the march past from, you know, the bank here to U building. I'm to sure over 240 million leones now to clear just a container. I'm
sure you want to talk to the former information minister. You know, I'm staying put with labor and industrial relations issues. You're taking me to taxation and other things. I would advise you call CBA here so that you can have a chat with him, or the NRA, right? I want to keep it at that.
I've been reading this
before I'm charged with foraging into other people's territorial, what have you.
Mohamed Rahman, I want to take you back to the Koidu situation.
Please do.
It would be easy to think if the ministry had done its job, utilizing all its powers, again, it's not an organization or CSO, it's a government ministry. If you had done your job, perhaps the First Lady and her people in Kono would not have even needed to go on a peaceful protest in the first place.
Okay, so...
Are you pampering, when I say you, government, are you pampering the company just of fear of not losing another foreign investor in the country?
Well, while that might be part of the problem, but let me also tell you, when Madam First Lady was drafted into this conversation, we spent days engaging, first with aggrieved employees, right, in her office. There was a day where we literally stayed there till after 7 o'clock. Yeah? We gave her everything we had. We brought in people who had things that were not even public knowledge. Yeah. The other day we brought in the management, the leadership. We brought in the leadership. We did our very, very best with her in attendance. It was literally still no dice. The only thing we succeeded in getting the second day, for the whole day we were negotiating, was a bag of rice for them. So they stuck to their guns, they wouldn't move, they wouldn't budge, they wouldn't do anything.
Seems like that company has made you a toothless bulldog.
Well,
stripping you of your powers as a government ministry.
I don't understand what that means. I still have...
That means with everything you're doing, as you just submitted, they wouldn't bulge. They're still playing ball on their own terms.
I say to
even though they're dealing with a government ministry.
I say to you, even when Madam First Lady joined, the reason they got to a strike action was because they were very uncooperative, they were obstinate, they could not see reasoning to make concessions. So the only language they could understand. Listen. No. So the only way fighting this is with a protest. The only way we could do it, the only way the staff could do it, was to ensure that they bring the operations to a halt, which is what they did yesterday. So I now know between that company and the government, who is more powerful? Well, who dictates the tune? Government will do what we have to do. But it seems in this current case, it's the company that is controlling what the government is doing, not the other way around. Government does not. We have committed to creating an enabling environment. But the reality of that situation for the people in Koidu is still as it was unresolved. You are not talking about a company that is paying below minimum wage, for example. They are not paying below minimum wage. We are talking about their salary as it stands, in relation to other players in the same mining sector. That's what we're talking about. We are talking about a transition that they did that was not fair and just. These are all historical from 2016. So what we're really trying to do is to resolve a historical injustice. You cannot issue out edicts. You cannot issue a fatwa to them. You have to negotiate, right? To a point where they are able to make reasonable concessions, right? You make reasonable concessions. That is what you do with private companies. You don't issue a fatwa to them. You don't issue edicts to them. You don't give directives to them because it will undermine your very, very acclaimed position to create an enabling environment for businesses. So legally, we will not allow them to get away with murder. I can guarantee you that. So legally, what's the way forward out of this from the government's position? Because what you see now, it seems that government is really looking very powerless in this situation, that a whole First Lady would have to go and join her people to do a protest for an issue that has dragged so long, and you're still doing diplomacy to resolve, but remains unresolved, and the company still standing its ground over your heads as a government. No. Even before the protest, a lot of concessions have been made, but we are not happy with the concessions. They have agreed. So if concessions were made, what led to having a protest? No. They have agreed, in principle, to a 20% pay rise, which we think is very small, considering we are trying to address a historical injustice. So are you saying the negotiation is going well? We have said we will settle at 30%. So that is why the demonstrations are still ongoing, in addition to several other demands. So it's not that nothing has been put on the table. Yeah, well, that would be the assumption. Since December, a protest does not just happen. When a protest happens, you see it as that, okay, this means things are falling apart. So it's good. It's always good to scratch beneath the surface. Since December, there has been clamoring for a lot of things, including a bag of rice, 50 kg for all staff. That has been effected since December, right? There are concessions for a 20% pay rise. We want more, because what we're talking about is addressing a historical injustice. We want a more enabling work environment, devoid of intimidation, devoid of harassment, devoid of discrimination, all of those things. So asking for a full package, we're not asking for, we don't want to be thankful for little masses. So what's the way forward? These are the things I'm saying to you. If they refuse to give in to the demands of the community and what you're advocating for, what are the next steps? Well, among the demands also include the unconditional reinstatement of all of those employees they have either terminated or suspended because of their participation in trade union activities. I mean, Section 12, Part 3 of the Employment Act is very clear. We will not hold any prisoners for that. We will insist on the unconditional reinstatement and the payment of full benefits to those staff because they were sacked for their participation in trade union activities. There can be no middle ground about that. We will insist on the 30% and the sundry other things I've said. These are things we have already communicated to them last week in writing. So whatever protest is happening to ensure that this is giving credence. This is enforced. While that submission is noted, that's not the response to the question I asked was not on that. My question is, going forward, if they do not give in to the demands you've put on the table per the negotiation, what next? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I can guarantee you, like I told you in the beginning, government has quite a couple of instruments at her disposal to use, to enforce, to give currency to her directives. So let's wait for that point. I hope we really don't get there. Organizations buy fire vehicles. They buy all of those things. they don't want to use them because they don't want any fire to break out, right? We have powers that we could use. We really and sincerely hope we can resolve this matter without having to use them. We could draw work permits for people who are intransigent, who have come in the way of the negotiations, and who are clamping down on people because they are exercising their trade union rights. But who want to get there? No, we want it resolved. Just like somebody with a fire vehicle does not want to have cause to use them.
Are you getting resistance from any other side of the government on this?
Well, government is a single entity. Even where we have reservations, we are all working cooperatively to resolve this.
I ask this because it doesn't seem so. In as much as the First Lady is not government, but she is the President's wife. So you would assume that for the statements she makes, she is privy to certain information. And with her submission during that protest, it paints a picture that there are some fractions of the government, and by her statement, the Chief Minister is implicated that is siding with Koidu Holdings, empowering them to blatantly disregard other sectors of the government, like your ministry, imposing on them to give in to the demands of the workers.
She probably has more information than I do. I don't have that information, right? So the best person to clarify that
your desk
is
as
Madam
a minister,
First Lady herself,
but from your
or her
desk,
competent spokesperson.
So I'm asking you as the minister, from your desk as minister, are you facing resistance from any quarters of government that you think are enabling Koidu Holdings from complying with community demands through your ministry?
I cannot put my finger to that.